Yeah? Okay, there I am. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started, guys. Thanks for bearing with us. I'd like to reconvene this meeting of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board. And as we do, I'd also like to, before we get to approving the agenda and certifying closed session, I want to make mention that about 2 hours ago, we did modify our agenda to remove a policy discussion and action, and that was on policy, let me find it here, excuse me, ECABA, Employee Identification Badges. Our intention was to remove that from our policy handbook via action tonight. We heard from staff that they would recommend, rather than removing that policy, to wait for a threat and vulnerability assessment report that we're going to get here pretty soon, I think, in our next meeting. Is that accurate, Dr. Herron?
Next month, sir.
Next month, thank you. And so what we've done, we have removed that agenda item from tonight's agenda, and I just want to make everyone aware of that change, and that's the only change that we do have at this point. All right. Without further ado, if I can have a motion to certify closed session.
Mr. Chair, I certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, the Williamsburg-James City County School Board, while in closed session, discussed only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements as stated in Virginia law, and that only such public matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Beers. Ms. Aller?
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. Thank you. And can I have a motion to approve the agenda as is now presented?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda as it has been presented.
Thank you, Ms. Ortego. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hundley. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this evening I will be abstaining in response to the remarks you made earlier today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Abstain.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. Thank you. And if we would all rise, I'd like to ask Miss Emily Cobb and her husband, Mr. Taylor Cobb, to join us at the front. They're going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Cobb is a teacher at Toano Middle School.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. All right. We'll move on to item 4, the announcements and superintendent's report. Dr. Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This week is 26th Annual Public School Volunteer Week. We are delighted to recognize the contributions of our volunteers throughout the school division. Volunteers enrich the academic, social, and career development of our students. We are grateful for the support our volunteers gift us through their talents, time, caring, and expertise. The pandemic has prevented us from welcoming volunteers at full capacity in our schools. However, the more than 300 individuals donating their time to support our students, teachers, and staff this year at the secondary level were instrumental to our school's successes. Volunteers have tutored students, supported after-school enrichment activities in the area of arts and athletics, sponsored staff appreciation events, organized fundraisers, and garnered additional community support. Perhaps their greatest contribution during the challenges of this past year was their unending encouragement and commitment to students, teachers, and staff. During Public School Volunteer Week, I hope our community will join us in celebrating our secondary schools Volunteers of the Year, who will be recognized tonight and profiled throughout the week on our website and social media outlets. Learning more about our volunteers' contributions will no doubt warm readers' hearts and motivate more people to volunteer next year. I speak for all of our staff, teachers and students when saying we are eager to open wide our school doors at all levels in the fall to welcome back our wonderful volunteers. In closing, I'm pleased to share with you this brief video that expresses our gratefulness for our many dedicated volunteers.
Volunteers are a huge impact on our school. They volunteer their time, their resources, and they help out teachers with things that, we have so many jobs, and they help those extra hands that we always need around the classroom we can never get enough of.
Volunteers support our school and donate supplies to our school. This year we had a wishing tree. Parents were able to come in and take tags off of it. Personally, I was able to get Clorox wipes, markers, supplies that students were able to get. Even some small treats were sent in to staff members this year.
You guys are the hidden gem of the school. You guys help us out with so many things and definitely don't get the appreciation or the clap of hands that you deserve.
Volunteers are the best.
Thank you, volunteers.
We can't wait for fall to see all our volunteers.
Thank you, Dr. Aaron. Any board members have any reports to offer?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, good evening. Tonight we are excited to
Dr.
recognize.
Beers? We're not quite there yet. Before we do have a report. Just one second. Ms.
Yes,
Huntley?
I have a SEAC report. For those of you, that acronym is the Special Ed Advisory Committee. And if you have a student with special needs or you're interested in serving on the committee or just coming to see what we talk about, we have our next meeting on May 12th. It's open to you. We're working on a brochure that'll be at the schools just to explain a little bit more about SEAC, and we're working on an annual report that will be given in June. We also have a student on our committee this time, so if you even have a student maybe in high school that would also like to serve, we would welcome them. Thank you.
All right. Any others? All right. Let's get down to some recognitions. I think we're quite ready and excited for this. All right. Ms. Hummel, will you meet me down front?
Sure.
And let's bring that mic towards Dr.
Volunteers, Teachers of the Year. During Public School Volunteer Week, we are pleased to not only thank all the volunteers who support WJCC schools, but also recognize several outstanding volunteers for their contributions. Volunteers of the Year, as your name is called, please come forward to be recognized. From Berkeley Middle School, Michael Loy. From James Blair Middle School, Ashlyn Pierce. And from Lois Hornsby Middle School, Corey Wjcc. From Toano Middle School, Lisa Wolf. Lisa could not be with us this evening. She is celebrating her son's birthday, but let's give her a hand anyway. From Jamestown High School, Beth Kluger. From Lafayette High School, Susan Schlimme. I did that. Sorry, Susan, was I close? Was that close? And from War Hill High School, Craig Wjcc. These volunteers spend countless hours in our schools and contribute their time, talents, and expertise to the learning process. We are grateful for their unwavering support and strong sense of advocacy towards our students' success. Each of these individuals has an important role on our team, and it is a privilege to take this moment to thank them for their partnerships. Congratulations to each of these outstanding leaders. We are also honored tonight to recognize 17 of the division's outstanding teachers. As your name is called, Teachers of the Year, please come forward to be recognized. The Bright Beginnings Teacher of the Year, Paige Hannah. The Claire Bird Baker Teacher of the Year, Marie Parks. From DJ Montague, Teacher of the Year, Tamara Donovan. From the J. Blaine Blayton Teacher of the Year, Sarah Schleicher. The James River Teacher of the Year, Tracy Clary. From Laurel Lane, the Teacher of the Year, Stephanie Klein. From Matthew Whaley, the Teacher of the Year, Christine McBee. The Norge Teacher of the Year, Rachel Davis. Stonehouse Teacher of the Year, April Ferrulli. The Berkeley Teacher of the Year, Robin Jones. And the James Blair Teacher of the Year, Jenny March. A Lois Hornsby Teacher of the Year, Ji Soo Kim.
Wait a minute.
The Towano Teacher of the Year, Emily Cobb. The Jamestown Teacher of the Year, Joy Tyson. The Lafayette Teacher of the Year, Andrew Lynn. And the War Hill Teacher of the Year, Jerome Rhodes. Oh my God. Sorry, I went right by Matoka. The Matoka Teacher of the Year, Allison Howell.
Trying to see if you're on your toes.
I'm sorry, Allison. I was so excited I just raced through it. My apologies. The WJCC Teacher of the Year program allows us to pay tribute to teachers who are exceptionally skilled, dedicated, and who demonstrate excellence in the classroom. Each school's Teacher of the Year is selected by peers for their outstanding classroom instruction and leadership. These teachers embody WJCC's core values of individualism, integrity, innovation, accountability, and collaboration. Congratulations to each of you for being named Teacher of the Year of your school. We appreciate all you do to help our students and schools be successful. Mr. Chairman, this concludes recognitions for this evening. We look forward to recognizing student athletes, support employees of the year, and more at the regular meeting in May.
This is a fun room to be in tonight with all these talented teachers and volunteers, servants. We're just very grateful for each one of you, and thank you for putting children first. We're going to move on to item 6.1, public comment. Dr. Beers.
Right. It is, excuse me, it is this point in our meeting where citizens are invited to address the board.
You might want to, let's give it a second.
Wait till they leave.
Not a lot. It's looking like. Dr. Beers, let's give it another try.
Right. Those citizens desiring to speak have submitted speaker cards to the clerk prior to the start of tonight's meeting. These speakers are asked to come to the podium when their names are called, state their names for the record, and direct their comments to the chair of the board. It is the board's interest and desire that all comments are heard and respected. Hence, the citizens are asked to not engage in applauding, verbal outbursts, or any other type of demonstrations during the presentation. Personal matters are not considered in public meetings. Therefore, the board requests that all speakers refrain from making references to specific individuals in any form or fashion. Though the board does not respond to your comments are heard and appreciated. Each speaker is allocated 1 minute and 30 seconds to make their presentation, and the board asks that you respect this time limit. Also, please be reminded that no time may be yielded to another speaker. Your acceptance and adherence to these guidelines will be greatly appreciated. And if you brought written statements, please submit those to the clerk of the board so that we may look at them later as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and my directions are concluded.
Thank you, Dr. Beers. Who do we have first?
Very first is Anne Marie Smith.
Hey, good evening. Let's take a look at this newly approved textbooks, and I think we gave some handouts for you of a picture of the cover of this book. It's by Savas, and it's AP Edition Government in America, People, Politics, and Policy. I'd ask, is this an unbiased factual textbook or a manual on how to train students to become social justice warriors for leftist ideals? Savas's own online video review of this book notes that they wish to empower students to inspire social and political change. Well, who's Savas? Savas states on its website to help guide Savvis in advancing culturally responsive learning within its products and services and throughout its organization. They have a culturally responsive learning advisory board. One board member is Gloria Ladson Billings. From September 2020, Savvis's own posting states that Ms. Billings is a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, is the original author on culturally responsive education, and currently writes about culturally relevant pedagogy and critical race theory. She is still currently an advisor on the board. Savvis has interestingly edited out those last 3 words, critical race theory, from her bio. She is still the same person. Let's look at the cover. If you look at the picture and the verbiage, some of these posters are clearly legible. Think about the impact that these words have on students every day that they see them.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Okay, I'll be back to review more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michael Hosanna.
Dr. Beers, we are having a tough time hearing you tonight.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Is that better? Go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry.
Good evening. Mr. Chair, I would like to know why it was okay for you to call me out at the last school board meeting regarding my comments, but it was not okay for me to call out the superintendent for her actions. While it may disappoint you, I and other speakers have a First Amendment right to call out public officials, which all of you are, at a public meeting, which this is, for their actions and inactions, and your rules do not trump the Constitution, the First Amendment, or my rights. Tonight, I again call for the school board to remove the superintendent and anyone else in the Wjcc administration who continue to misrepresent issues to this board. 3 days after the last school board meeting, Wjcc schools sent out an email, a weekly family newsletter to parents with various topics. The second topic was on an upcoming family academy. When you click on the link, it takes you to a different topics to be covered by the academy. The second topic issued was entitled, How SEL Supports Your Child. When you click on that link, it opens to a taped presentation from October of 2021 regarding teaching our children various aspects of SEL. It was taught by 3 administrative Wjcc personnel. Yet the superintendent and other staff members have repeatedly lectured you that this was not being taught in our schools. You're either being played for fools or you're complicit in her charade. Either way, our children deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hossain. Sure.
Next speaker is Alan Parham.
Hello and good evening, Chairman Dowell, Dr. Herron, and esteemed members of the board. My name is Alyn Parham, President of the Williamsburg James City Education Association, WJCEA. Tonight, the community comes together to celebrate teacher excellence in all of our schools that have continued to provide an enriching academic environment for all of our students in our community. As we continue to appreciate all of our educators and educator support professionals in our division, WJCEA encourages the school board to continue to discuss the topic of staff bonuses. We know that this will not fix many of the long-term issues that have risen in the division the past 2 years. However, it would be appreciative of the funds left over at the end of the year be utilized towards financial appreciation for our staff, as they have been working tirelessly hard, as they've gone above and beyond with the amazing skills they have as educator professions in our division. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parham.
Thank you. Excuse me. Phyllis, I think, is at Eastern? Eastman, sorry.
You know, the defunct Eastman Kodak. Good evening, how are you? I'm Phyllis Eastman. I'm not going to read all this because I've run out of time, as you know. First, I'd like to request that the government book approved by the system be decertified because it has a BLM protest on the front cover. Who was on the panel that approved this text? It is disqualified by the cover. Continually carried to class, it is a form of advertisement or indoctrination. It is divisive. BLM was founded by two Marxist women who received overseas training. They have articulated their loyalty to Marxism. Funds have been recently used to buy a $6 million estate. They are under financial investigation in California, and they use hateful rhetoric against our police officers. The rest you can read, if you will. Secondly, we are told there's no CRT in the curriculum. Yet our teachers, the younger teachers, have spent 5 years being indoctrinated by leftist professors. 90% who give money to political organizations give it to the Democratic Party. So therefore, we need a in-service so that they get the other part, so that they have two views rather than just the view they were given in college, so that they don't move that mindset into their teaching. In Florida, has discovered that 41% of the math texts have CRT in them. I'm wondering if the board would consider reading the text you adopted and see if you can identify CRT in the text. If it's in there, then that book should be disqualified.
Thank you, Ms. Eastman.
Thank you.
And our next speaker is John.
Dr. Beers, they can't hear you. Move the microphone.
Sorry. Our next speaker is John Slokowitz.
Sure.
The right? That close?
Slokowitz.
All right, John.
I mean, I honestly don't know why I'm here. I mean, look at this book. I mean, how can you send this to children? No peace, no justice. Silence equals violence. Stop killing black people. I mean, this is the front cover of a book. Do I really need to be here taking time away from my family? To the student. In 2020 presidential election, Joe Biden advocated for major change in public policy, ranging from healthcare, environmental protection to immigration and relations with U.S. allies around the world. I mean, this is to the student. This is what we're telling people. You have pictures of police officers holding up black people. I mean, this is out of control. Why am I here? I'm advocating to educated people stop doing this. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slokowitz. Mr. Slokowicz.
That's all our speakers.
That's all our speakers. Thank you, Dr. Beers. All right, we're going to move on to item 7.01. In fact, our consent agenda for the evening. Approval of financial report and monthly bills and payroll for March 2022. Approval of minutes from March 15th, 2022 meeting. Approval of minutes from the April 12th, 2022 meeting. Approval of Resolution R1422, National Teacher Appreciation Week. Approval of Resolution R1522, School Nutrition Employee Appreciation Week. Approval of Resolution R1622, National School Nurse Day. Approval of approval of revisions to policy IGDB student publications. Approval of revisions to policy EBBA first aid CPR certified personnel. Approval of revisions to policy GC professional staff. Approval of revisions to policy GCE part-time and substitute professional staff employment. And finally, 7.11, approval of revisions to the school board standard operating procedures. Can I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ortego. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye.
Mr. Dowd.
All right. On to action items. Item 8.01, approval of personnel actions. Can I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I move that that we approve the personnel actions as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Beers. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hundley. And not seeking any conversation on this one, Ms. Aller?
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Ms. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Mr. Dowd.
Aye. Item 8.02, approval of special education annual plan 2022-23 in the Title 6B flow-through funds. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the Special Education Annual Plan 2022 to 2023 and the Title 6-B flow-through funds.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Beers. Any discussion on this one? Ms. Cook?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to reiterate from our discussion at the last meeting that every school board in the nation wishes the federal government would fully fund the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, which this plan is part of. They underfund us and leave the local governments to pay the lion's share of the requirements behind the law.
Thank you for that timely reminder, Ms. Cook. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none. Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortega.
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. Approval of the local plan, item 8.03, local plan and budget for career and technical education, Carl D. Perkins grant for school year 2022 through 23. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the local plan and budget for career and technical education, Carl D. Perkins grant for school year 2022 and 2023.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hummel. Any discussion? All right. I really appreciated Ms. Walters' presentation on this in our last meeting last week. Very in-depth and left no question unturned. With that, Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Ortega.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. Item 8.04, approval of request to purchase 6 emergency radio bidirectional antennas for schools. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve a request to purchase 6 emergency radio bidirectional antennas for schools and the associated budget transfer in the amount of $297,990.32.
Thank you, Ms. Hummel. Is there a second?
Second.
I believe that was Ms. Cook. Sorry if I'm not pointed that direction. I'm not quite sure. Thank you, Ms. Cook. Any conversation and discussion? All right. I think, yes, Ms. Cook.
Yeah, I just would like to, for this and the next agenda item, to just thank the school division and the local governments for their cooperation in providing the infrastructure to help provide a safe environment for our students and staff. Without their cooperation, we couldn't do this. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. And thank you to Mr. Snipes, just reiterating what Ms. Cook has offered. Thank you for your diligent work and putting this together in short order as well, keeping us in line and with what our county and city counterparts are achieving for their safety. Ms. Aller?
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortega.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. And its companion item, approval of purchase request for replacement of 270 emergency radios, item 8.05. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the purchase request for replacement of 270 emergency radios and the associated budget transfer for a total cost of $975,356.37.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Say ditto from the previous comments. Is there any other discussion around 270 radios, which in effect will replace all radios in our circulation, I believe?
Just one point of clarification, it will replace all of the emergency radios. The school, inside school radios are a different kind of radio.
Thanks for that clarification. All right, Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortega.
Aye.
And Mr. Dowell.
Aye. Item 8.06, approval of request for social studies curriculum resource adoption and purchase. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the request for social studies textbook and instructional materials adoption and purchase to 5 Ponds Press, Savas, and Cengage for a total cost of $130,921.19 and the associated budget transfer.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hundley. Discussion? Ms. Ortega.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I do have a little bit of an issue with the review process as it occurred. When we heard the presentation last week, division staff themselves identified significant gaps in the review process. They said that they would potentially see the need to have more than one textbook fair for the public, that they would want to narrow committee responsibilities, which might include limiting the number of courses being reviewed at one time, the reduction in volume of items and criteria, extending the full time to review for all stakeholders, and feedback from some of the coordinators, which we have not heard. I don't know what their feedback was, but there seemed to be an indication that they too had some improvement ideas. Because this review process had significant gaps for a number of stakeholders, I think that it actually requires more time to review these and with a wider stakeholder group. I do commend the division for identifying these necessary improvements. I also commend all the staff for the tremendous amount of work that they did do. This is not a critique of any of the staff or division staff for the work that was done, and this is not saying that anything needs to be started over, but the process does need to be revised and expanded. I understand that COVID restrictions may have contributed to the review process being altered from the way it had been done in the past, but we don't have those restrictions anymore. And I believe it's in the best interest of all stakeholders, including the division itself, to include the materials that are before us in a revised review process. So for those reasons, I will not support this tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. Ms. Young?
Right. Going on with what Ms. Ortega said, I will also be voting no on this tonight because after our last meeting on April 12th, I was very happy that the division has seen some of the some of the issues that were involved in the current adoption of these textbooks, including the lack of time that allowed stakeholders, including parents and the community, to have time to take a look at the textbooks. And because I think when we adopt something for 5 years, that's a long time, and I do understand that this is only one resource which is available to teachers. However, because it is there within the classroom and students have access to it, I would like the process delayed until the process can be re-examined and revised so that it does include all of the stakeholders. And I do think there needed to be more time allotted so that could occur. I do commend the teachers and the staff who participated. I am highly aware of the expertise that is part of the division that we are fortunate enough to have within our teachers and staff. But because I do not believe that the process was truly reflective of what needed to happen, I will be voting no on this tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Any other statements or comments from board members? Ms. Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for staff. Dr. Herron, is this adoption time sensitive from rolling out for next year?
Yes, it's absolutely time sensitive to have the purchase of the text and time to roll out next year. And the process has been consistent over a number of years, and we allocated more time to it this year.
Thank you. Yeah, so because this is time sensitive, I am ready to support this today. I think it's of note that that the textbooks that are under review for every division in the state are pre-approved by the Virginia Department of Education. So we aren't in a position to review or consider textbooks for adoption that aren't already pre-approved. And, I'm proud to say that we have one of the best education systems in the country by, many standards, top 10. So I'm inclined to trust that process. I think that the recommendations that were made for improvement were transparent and accountable, and I believe in continuous improvement, and I support that, and I'm grateful for that. But that effort of continuous improvement, I don't believe justifies not proceeding at this time. I just think it informs future processes. So I trust the professionals that brought this to us, and I'm ready to support it. And I appreciate all the work that went into it, the members on this board, but also the professionals at both the state and here in WJCC. So I support this.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Ms. Hummel.
I'm just wondering whether or not it's possible to break this apart a little bit. And it appears that there are major concerns with the AP US Government and Politics textbook, but I haven't heard any issues with the fourth grade studies book, or the history, or the economics version. I'm just wondering, and I guess I'm putting this out to my fellow school board members, whether, because the next item that's coming up is the science curriculum, which also doesn't seem to have a controversial aspect to it. And so I just am wondering whether it's the controversy that is being the hesitancy versus the actual process itself.
And I think what I'm hearing from Ms. Ortego is that it's 100% the process. I think that's what I've heard. I think from Ms. Young, I've heard a little bit of process and a little bit of controversy in material, what's written embedded in the material. And for you, Ms. Hummel, you're interested in understanding if we can pull a textbook out or potentially amend the motion to not include a book, or am I misunderstanding?
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm saying, because I just am looking at the next one, which is the science curriculum, and if our judgment is that we all heard how the process can be continued for the future, but for the time being, there's a real timing issue here, and I'm just wondering whether that. But if I'm the only one that feels that way, then.
May I ask, as far as the exigency of purchase, is it the availability of the materials? Is it year-end spending, that component?
It's the use of year-end funds in particular. They have to be ordered, in other words, for them to be delivered by June 30th.
So based on Ms. Hummel's question, if 3 of the 4 were approved in an amended motion, we would still meet a deadline based on year-end spending, and whatever classes would have benefited from the textbook of concern, I think from Ms. Hummel's standpoint, they would still be utilizing what material they're using now.
Mr. Chair, I still think we need to take a vote on the AP US history because there may be a majority of this board who supports going forward with it today.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah,
I'm just asking,
clear about that.
would it be, if that vote did take place and we had an amended motion, does that hurt the division as far as timeline?
I think if we want the materials delivered in time, the vote should go ahead as has been recommended this evening.
And Mr. Chair, as the person who made the motion, I do not support an amendment, so an amendment would have to be made by a board member and seconded and voted on separately, because as the person who made it, I don't support the.
Right.
Yeah.
After a vote is taken, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
After the vote is taken. So we've got a motion. If the motion passes, we go on to the next.
Correct.
The next.
If the motion fails, then a person who voted in the prevailing way can then bring back another motion crafted in a way that they see fit for another vote by this board.
Tonight.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Do we have an understanding on that? What might happen? Dr. Beers? Do you have a question?
No.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
No, the only comment I'd have to say is that I know that a team of people did look at the content within the book, and I understand we're judging a book by the cover, but not the content, everything that's in the book. So that's all I would like to say. But the content within the book was relevant to what's going on historically now.
I agree.
Okay. So I'm going to maybe tag on to what Ms. Hunley just offered, and for my part, it does go beyond what's on the cover. I took the long Easter weekend to take a look at 3 of the 4 history offers that have been presented to us, and you know, for my part, trying to thumb through or flip through, click through pages over a long weekend, I didn't see anything in particular with the material that was shared with us in public comment overtly or glaringly offensive or divisive, although I can see how it might be construed as such. So I just wanted to say that there were board members here that have looked beyond the cover, if I could offer that. All right. So we've got a motion on the table.
We hear the,
yeah,
can we hear the wording of the motion again?
Yes, sir. The motion is to approve the approval of request for social studies curriculum resource adoption and purchase to Five Ponds Press, Savas, and Cengage for a total cost of $130,921.19 and the associated budget transfer. And so it's a package purchase, right?
Just wanted to double check.
Okay. All right. I'm not hearing any additional motions from board members. Okay, Ms. Aller?
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Nay.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
No.
Mrs. Young.
No.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
No. Okay. At this point, should we, Ms. Parliamentarian, should we entertain a new motion, or should we move on to item 8.07?
I'd like to, I guess, adjust the motion, have a new motion, which says, I would like to approve the request for social studies textbook and instructional materials adoption and purchase to Five Ponds Press. And then it's, and Cengage for a total cost of, this is what I don't know. I don't know what the total cost would be.
What's the pullout? Yeah.
I don't know that. So for the total cost of I don't know how to say that. So for the total cost of those textbooks and the associated budget transfer.
Except for.
And can
I'm
we
not
ask,
including the
Dr.
service.
Herron, can we ask staff to take a look at what that new cost would be if we pulled out, and I guess the motion would be to pull out AP US Government Politics,
It's the government.
Government in America, to pull that out, what would the new cost be, and then we can come back to this, we can move on to 8.07.
So just for clarification, sir,
Um,
you're
but-
pulling out both AP,
No.
U.S. history, because that's
No.
also Savas.
No. So, no, that's not what I said. What I said was just the U.S. government and politics, government in American AP edition, 18th edition, 2020 presidential election, just that one.
Just the one. So is that possible to figure it out?
Ms. Ewan, I'm not sure, do we have the individual costs for each of the textbooks this evening?
I don't have that information with me.
So we can't give you an exact number. You'd have to vote on the textbooks without an associated cost.
Okay.
Okay, so then I could say I move to approve the request for, and I'm going to actually say
Read the text.
the Virginia Studies, Our Virginia Past and Present, 3rd edition, 5 Ponds Press, comma, AP U.S. History by the People, A History of the United States, 2nd edition, 2019, Savas, AP Economics, Principles of Economics, 9th edition, 2022, Cengage.
That is the motion before us.
And the associated budget transfer.
And the associated budget transfer. Is there a second? We don't have a second. So the motion fails. We're going to move on to item 8.07, approval of request for science curriculum resource adoption and purchase. Is there a motion for this agenda item?
Mr. Chair, I move that I'm going to do this one. I'm going to put it down here. I move that we request for science textbook and instructional materials adoption and purchase to Discovery Education, Savas, and McGraw-Hill for a total cost of $387,789.54 and the associated budget transfer.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Any discussion?
You can go.
Ms. Ortega, and then it sounds like Ms. Young. Ms. Ortega, Ms. Young.
I'll just reiterate what I said before, and I feel that the process overall, this was a significant amount of material, and I think it warranted longer review.
Ms. Young.
I agree with what Ms. Orgo said. I would like to have the process revisited and then have these books looked at again through the lens of a different process in a more robust manner.
Any other comments and questions? Okay. Ms. Aller?
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
No.
Mrs. Young.
No.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
And Mr. Dowell.
Aye. Okay. Item 9.1, board member comments. I'll start over here, Ms. Ortega. That's okay?
I have no additional comments tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Hunley?
Yes. Yes, I wanted to just talk about, I had a great opportunity to go to Jamestown High School, and I saw a collaboration activity with Miss Powerum's class, which is a social studies class, along with Miss Furr's class, which is an art class. And so Miss Powerum's class is studying Jacob Lawrence, the artist for the Renaissance period. And the art students were able to help, along with the art teacher, her students in painting and doing some artwork to help with that. And also outside of her classroom, Miss Parum actually has a student who has family in Ukraine, and the students made Pasenki eggs and decorated them, and it was a beautiful display outside of her room. So that was a great collaboration with social studies and art. And then also I had an opportunity at War Hill to see a collaboration again on the same day. It was coincidence though. But Mr. Gray, who is the teacher for the Teach for Tomorrow students, he had been on a missions trip to India. And so he collaborated with Miss Boyd, who was a world geography teacher. And he had a PowerPoint presentation, and the students all had their laptops. So as he was going through, he had embedded things that they could click on and participate, like what was their favorite restaurant. and a lot of it was Chick-fil-A. And then in India, they have a McDonald's, except because they don't eat beef, everything is chicken products. So the kids, it was just so exciting to see the kids interacting with, and then he had pan bread for each child to try. So they got to experience some of the food as well. But for 90 minutes, those children were just in awe of things. It was really hard. It was with the chatter, especially for him, because some of the kids had never seen. It was an interactive virtual trip, so there were videos embedded. And so it was like you were actually there, and the kids were very excited, especially ones that have never been to India or a foreign country. So that was a joy for me to see. Thank you.
Ms. Hunley. Ms. Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to commend the Volunteers of the Year, and I won't be here next year to see it, but I am excited for next year to have Volunteers of the Year for all of our schools, and so that's going to be an exciting way forward. And then also I'd like to commend the Teachers of the Year. It's wonderful to see each school celebrate their best and brightest. I also want to reiterate something that I said at our last meeting, which is just to emphatically state that our leadership operates in a way that is full of integrity, accountable, and transparent. And this board monitors that continuously, and I have a great deal of pride in and respect for our leadership, and I just want to say that again. I also want to comment that this incredible country is one constant social and political change since its inception. It's a constant, dynamic, iterative process between its government for the people, by the people, and so I think social and political changes are part of our DNA, and so I think it's appropriate to teach that. I am disappointed in the action that we took today with regard to social studies curriculum resources. I think we deprived our children of new textbooks and deprived our teachers of the opportunity to use new materials. My son recently took AP Government, and I can tell you that the materials he had were antiquated at best and frustrating to use. Our staff went through a rigorous process. They identified opportunities to improve. It takes time to adjust to new expectations, and in the wake of the pandemic, that resulted in new expectations on the parts of families and in the community for the resources that are taught to our children, and I respect that, but I don't think that justifies denying our children and our teachers new resources. So I am disappointed in the action that this board took today, and I wanted to state that publicly because I think our teachers and our children deserve the materials that were recommended by staff, and I think it was a professional and well-considered process. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Ms. Hummel.
Hi, I also would like to commend our Volunteers of the Year and our Teachers of the Year. I wanted to also report that as a member of the Wjcc Foundation, Dr. Heron and I met with them this past week, and they have decided that they are going to sponsor the Teacher of the Year, which is wonderful news. We had a very robust conversation at our council, at the foundation meeting, where they were talking about different innovative ways to engage with the school system above and beyond our current grant structure for innovative learning and teaching experiences. So I wanted to let everyone know about that. I want to speak a moment about the textbook situation tonight, and to say that I am hopeful that the school administration will just maybe bring up a new review process that we can all move forward with, and it's not like the textbooks aren't going to be reviewed and approved. We just need to maybe revisit that quicker, and I'm hopeful maybe that doesn't have to wait till next year. I'm hopeful we can move forward with it. I also served on the committee, and I will be the first one to say that as a community member and as a school board member, I had the utmost confidence and just admiration for our curriculum leaders for these textbooks and all of the different things that they have to consider when they're approving textbooks. I think that in this particular case, for this particular book, I think things have been very controversial this year, and if we are making a decision on a textbook that's going to be around for 5 years, it would just be nice to give it a little extra thought. That's all. It's not that we are taking that textbook off forever, or the object of paying for it won't happen. It's just the review process might need to be a little more thorough, but hopefully it won't wait until next year.
Well, it will, because we have to do it now, or else the money goes back to the county. So I just hope that everyone understands that, because this is part of the budget transfer prior to the end of our spending. So then it'll have to be a request for year-end spending, which may or may not happen. So the ship has sailed. I just want to be clear about that.
And I'm hopeful that the ship has not sailed. So, thank you.
If I could just comment on that, it will be almost impossible for us to institute a new process at this time of the year. Curriculum staff are now focused on preparing students for SOLs. They're out in the schools, they're working on that. That's their first priority. So it's extremely unlikely that this will come back to you again this year.
Thank you, Dr. Hare. Ms. Hummel, did you have other comments?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Young?
Yes, I too want to congratulate the volunteers for the schools that were represented tonight. I too am looking forward to next year when we will have more volunteers from all of our schools, and hope that will continue. That's always been a joyous time of the year when we celebrate our Teachers of the Year, our retirees, our volunteers. So I'm looking forward to that also. Do want to congratulate the Teachers of the Year from the individual schools. We do have exemplary staff, and so it's always fun to have them come and visit with us. One of the things I will comment on, since process, I know I do understand how end of this year's funds need to be expended. I'm sure we can find something else to spend them on. I do think we are in a position where I'm happy to say that those textbooks were not adopted tonight. I do think that review process needs to be revised, and not only that, I really would appreciate if we could advertise more so that more parents and more community members could be part of that process. Along with that, I guess once that process is instituted, whatever that is taking a look at all of the members in our community. We don't lean one way politically. And because of that, I think that the books that we adopt should be representative of our total community. And that's kind of where I stand as a person. I value the opinion of my fellow board members, and I do understand that the decision we made tonight was unusual, but I do think it was an important decision, and that's the end of my comments, Mr. Chair.
Dr. Beers?
Yeah, I just have a few things to say. I, too, very much want to thank all of the volunteers who have been working in our schools all this year. And also to recognize once again the incredible value we have in the experienced, knowledgeable, professional educators who are our Teachers of the Year. And having said professional, I would go a step further and say that I very much respect the professional educators who spent countless hours looking over the material that they ultimately recommended in terms of textbooks to be considered. Also point out that textbooks are only a resource. The most important piece of information that you need to know is the quality of the teacher who's running that classroom. And I think that's been sort of overlooked here. Haven't thought about that. They are the experts. They are professional educators. And I'm disappointed with how our board responded to criticism of one or more of the texts. My last count, we have close to 12,000 students. And let's say each of those students has a parent or two. Then say, well, that's 20,000 parents. We came far short of hearing from the majority of those 20,000 parents. We instead heard from a relatively small, very critical group of individuals. And I am surprised that somehow that swayed members of our board to make the decision that they made. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Dr. Beers. Evening started out really great, celebrating volunteers, celebrating teachers, and I want to jump on the bandwagon and just say thank you to, first of all, our volunteers who have day jobs, evening jobs, love their kids, love our kids, and say they value public education and what our teachers, our faculty, staff, administrators are striving to achieve every single day, that they're going to come in and they're going to support that to the best of their own abilities. So thank you to all of our volunteers, and we chose to have the opportunity to recognize certain of our volunteers this evening, but that's just a small core of the volunteer base that means so much to the success of this school division and our teachers. I can't imagine the difficulty in a school to choose which teacher is going to be Teacher of the Year, which teacher is going to represent that school. I wouldn't want that responsibility. Anyway, so let me move on to some of the more difficult things, and that, of course, is sitting here and having staff, administrators, a superintendent who brings a recommendation, and we have to consider, can I uphold or can I vote in the affirmative of that recommendation? And 9.99 out of 10 times, it's very simple to do. And I just want to, there's been a lot said about the disappointment and this social studies decision this evening. The reason I voted no on that one textbook, thinking that we would be able to offer the other three, was simply because we are transitioning, prayerfully transitioning out of a period of discord in our community, in our country, and that takes all of us looking at the same things, having conversations, and weighing the merits of even a textbook. And will that material support us coming together as a community, or will it drive the wedge even deeper? Like I said, I looked beyond the first page. I knew about the cover months ago and waited on the curriculum committee team to bring a recommendation on that or the others. Wasn't until this weekend that I said, you know what, I've really got to dig deep in this and see for myself what is and what isn't. And as I mentioned earlier, nothing was glaringly divisive, but there are some factors, some aspects in the material that I could see through a different lens would ignite passions that we just don't need reignited in our schools. And so for that one textbook, I found it necessary to vote no. And that is not a slight on the committee that worked those many tireless hours that have been mentioned already. Not a slight on the division, the leadership here. Just a personal judgment call that I've got to live with, and that we all do. With that, I do want to move on to our upcoming events. And they look like on April 21st, the Policy Committee meeting virtually at 8:30. On May 11th, the 21st Century and Career Ready Advisory Committee meeting in person at Legacy Hall in Newtown at 3:30. And then the Special Education Advisory Committee meeting on May 12th at the Rec Center, Room D at 6:30. Moving on, upcoming meetings, closed session on May 3rd at 4 p.m. in the annex, and then work session with action items on May 3rd, right afterwards at 4:30 in the annex. May 17th, closed session at 6 o'clock in the annex, followed by a regular meeting here at 6:30 in this gymnasium at 6:30. All right. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.